of the popular third parties that you could review, a little bit, and you could say, well, am I familiar with those? Maybe I need to look that up and read about it. Then go to page 35. Now, page 35, what I did, and this is not our current text, and I wanted to update this year, but I didn't. This was the old book that I used, and the AP, some old AP tests. I went through and looked at all the italicized words, right? Words that were italicized as being kind of important words, and then put them into chronological order. So these are kind of like vocabulary words. And I do notice that sometimes when the kids read the test, there are words that they don't understand. And so I have them listed there with a brief definition. Now, what I do is those 2 Saturday sessions, where we come in for 2 hours. I try to take the first 30 of these, the first session, and then the next 30, the next session. So then I might start talking about the Calvinists and talk about the Puritans, and I'll read it and whatever sort of comes to my mind about it, I'll try to ask you questions and, go over it, and then, Puritanical, Great Awakening, Old Knights and New Lights, those topics, and then, connect it to other things, and we just sort of work through those terms. Now, when we come for those Saturday sessions, what we often do is this. So I think we have them at 4. We might change that. I mean, I know there's a musical performance. People are in the musical, and they would do that, and they would give them candy over in the cafeteria and things. I know that. So what we do is usually we go an hour or 45 minutes, and then we break for some kind of refreshments. Pizza, bring $1. So if you have $1, do you have $1 at your house, Courtney? Bring it with you. And so we'll eat for a little bit, and then we'll come back and we'll do some more. So we have like this 2-hour session, but these are the terms that we work on, right? And so if you look at this, if you come to both of those, we'll go all through U.S. history from like, the Calvinists and the Puritans and all the way up to the 1960s, right? Through these terms. Now, when we come after school in the evening, I'll start with colonization and go through it. And when we have a test, when we have those 2 objective tests, I'll review that, but I'll review kind of enhanced. So like next Thursday, not this Thursday coming up after this one, but the next one, the next day we have a test. So that Thursday I'll review for that test, but I'll tell you more stuff than is on the test. I'll review better, and that will kind of be like the AP review for progressivism, right? And then I'll go back on Tuesday and go through the Revolution in that time period. And so yeah, here you have all these terms, and hopefully some of them you have a familiarity. There's 67 of them. I wish I would have added some more, revised the list and look at it. I didn't have time to do it this year. I did some other things, replace some other things. The outline is new. If you go to page 46 in the blue, one of the things that I am weak on is covering women's history. Now, I made some mention. I mean, it's like Women's History Month, and like I told you, the AP is very, very politically correct. I mean, there are going to be gender questions on there. Sometimes the document-based question is on, issues of women's suffrage, and that's like a nightmare for me, because I don't really cover that extensively. We mentioned, women in progressivism, and we mentioned, the suffrage movement and how it was connected to progressivism, but we don't do a lot in that area. So I took all what I consider to be important women that might come up as an objective question or in a free response, and gave you a little summary, and it's front and back, beginning with Hutchinson and Jane Addams, 2 Ds. Carrie Nation actually was the women's Christian temperance movement today, right through Frances Perkins. And then if you go past that, you go to the review of the Supreme Court case. This is something that I added in this year. I had some other ones, but I found it's a little bit briefer than other things that I had, but I identified some important Supreme Court cases. This is another AP history teacher. This is the review that he gives his kids. Simon Mangus, Supreme Court summaries. The ones that I star there and give you a little further explanation of are ones that I really kind of think are important. Now Mangus, he thinks all of these are important. And so this is an overview of those cases. Some of these cases we talked about in class, some of these we did not. For example, Commonwealth versus Hunt on the next page. We didn't talk about that. Munn versus Illinois. We just cursory manner. I mean, this is another thing that you could do. And if any of you are taking the AP government test also, this would be something you'd kind of want to do because it will hit both. You know, I mean, you could, it would help you with both eras. Like the insular cases in the progressive era, we didn't talk about that. Those sometimes are considered to be important, the flag following, Constitution following the flag. And so there you have those, you might want to look at it. Then if you go to page 53, we have this, these kind of things I found in this book. I think it's 1,001 things everyone should know about. Is that it? No, 199 things, yeah. Everyone should know about American history. And Garrity devised these, calls them black agitators. These are African American people of note that agitated for civil rights. Some of them we've talked about, some of them we have not, but it gives you like a little overview of them. And then you see the books on page 54. You know, you notice the influence of Sea Power upon history, Uncle Tom's Cabin, Common Sense, some other books that we haven't talked about, Silent Spring with Rachel Carson of Cheswick. You know, I mean, Rachel Carson is local, Silent Spring is in the 60s. We won't get there. But if you review this kind of stuff, you know, you may catch this on a test. Compromises and Deals, page 55. Most of those we talked about. Historians, sometimes you're asked about them, not often, but they're on there. The Panics on page 58. We talked about most of those. There was a panic in 1907 that was important. Skipped it today because we missed, remember we missed all the 7 weeks because of snow, and then we had to stand because the kids were going to get hit by the car, by the buses, so we had to stand out by the snowplow. And so we skipped that today. Then some phrases, Manifest Destiny, Robber Barons, other things. Page 61, rebellions that we have talked about, you might want to look at. If you go to page 63, you have like outline reviews of some important topics. Hamilton's financial program. And again, if you got this book, I mean, and nothing else, you might want to, make a plan. I mean, you might want to say, well, okay, this is what I plan to do, this is what I plan to study. I mean, ideally, and I know that you kids don't do it this way, but ideally, you would build it into it would become like exercise. You know how you say, okay, I'm going to exercise every day or 3 days a week. You would build into your schedule, I missed 300 again. I tried it twice. I don't know. I might have to give up. I'm washed up.
Don't give up.
I'm giving up. I can't get it. But you build it into your schedule. Say, okay, I have a study all on Tuesday every week, and I have a study on Thursday every week. I'm going to study AP history in those study halls. Or I come home from school early on Thursdays, and I'm going to study from 3 to 4, and then Saturdays from 10 to 11. You know, something to at least start with, and then have a plan of what you're going to do when you study. And these kinds of things, are good. So I'm going to review all of the blue pages here. And it goes through the Civil War, the Age of Jackson, and then if there are things on there that look like they're important, and there are different topics here through page 77. If there are things there that look like they're important and you don't know about them, then you might want to look into them. Then go to page 83. Now, page 83 is my concession to, and this is particularly this year, because we're going to get through World War II. We're going to go through the 20s, we're going to go through World War II, we're going to get to the post-war era, we're going to talk about the growth of suburbia, we're going to talk about issues in the post-war era, we're going to talk about the economic prosperity between 1945 and 1973, but we in no way are going to cover the era after World War II as thoroughly as we've covered the eras before. Now, had we not had, remember we took that week off because of snow, and then we had to take the 5 days and stand because kids couldn't stand in the dark. Had that not happened, we would have really got, much further into it. We'll do the Cold War. But all that being said,